Number 1. Manky brushes. It's safe to say don't choose your best brushes with all of these paints. For example, these rust paints have a slight grainy texture to them to give them that added realistic look. You can stipple, or profusely pat like a painting ninja, these paints to create an uneven, patchy look. Number 2. Spongy. For a really fun and quick effect, you can sponge these paints on, and it can give you quite a nice mottled effect, and save those brushes. But you could also do the same method with the rust tone wash paint. This barrel has been given an aged look to it, but imagine this on something like orc vehicles and tanks. Number 3. We've had one texture, yes, but what about second textures? Adding a basing mix to the existing rust paint can give us a nice muddy ground look, and can be used as a simple texture paint, if you haven't got one already. However, by adding some fresh rust to the previously dried texture in a dry brushy stipple-esque method, we can start creating either a super rust, or the makings of a Mars industrial base. Number 4. Here's one for all of you Khorne fans out there. This True Blood is nice and bright, and pretty realistic with its glossy finish. It has a thicker feel to it than the normal acrylic paint range. However, the Dry Blood dries with a slight grainy finish to it, which is cool as we can start to give our weapons a full-on bloodied chop look. But we could also get our trusty sponge out once more and start patting on blood speckles, gore, and give our blades that well-used look. Blood for the blood god, I hear you cry? Then number 5. Something straight out of CSI. Using your wife's toothbrush and an airbrush, or a straw that you can blow through, we can create a fun directional blood splatter, such as on this scenery. Whoa, looks like someone got bludgeoned here, and not in a nice way. We can refine this with a detail brush, yes, using one of my nicer brushes here, to create a bit of dribble. But we ain't done yet. Using some thicker tacky glue and dry blood, we can make it into a gloopy paste. And adding that onto our bloodied area, we can make it a bit more graphic, just like splatting out some tomato ketchup on your chips. Number 6. Varnish first. For some extra juicy results, add the blood paint on after you matte varnish your miniatures, as the glossy finish to the blood will make it stand out even more. By adding some war paint stabilizer to the True Blood paint, it will dilute it right down to make it pretty translucent. And we can use this to add a fine layer, or glaze, of red onto the miniature. For example, picking out the fleshy guts on Lewis here. This would be good for also exposed wounds and boils. Lovely. Number 7. Just beat it. You can tell I'm having fun with this one. Next up, we're going to create some interesting oil bubbles for your bases and scenery. Some beads were cut in half and fixed into position. And then the oil stains paint was then mixed with some water effects to thicken it up. And this new mix was used to create a super easy oil spillage / tar pit gloopy look. Number 8. You are glowing. Why, thank you very much, and so are these paints. But most importantly, check these paints before you use them. All of mine had formed a thick gunk at the bottom as the paint had settled. Just pop off the lid and give the contents a really good stir. This should dislodge the thick paint at the bottom. Pop in another ball bearing if you have one and give it a good shake. The colour should start to get lighter and you are good to go. Number 9. Paint it white. These paints work particularly well over a white or a light grey layer. As they are fairly thin, like a wash paint, the lighter coloured undertone will make them look brighter. And of course, an advantage of being a super thin paint is that your coloured molecules can be thrust out of an airbrush. Here, a quick glow was added to this sword and created by using a lens flare glow over a white layer, and then followed up with a war paint ice yellow by brush to give it a bit more detail. Super simple for less than a minute of hobby. Number 10. Don't forget your balls. If you are about to throw away an empty paint bottle, then don't forget the mixing ball bearing inside. These little fellas are super useful. Just give them a good wash to get rid of the old paint, and then pop them into a different bottle. Maybe those glow paints would be a good idea. Or you can use them to play Warhammer 𝐒𝑖𝐻𝑚𝑒. Number 11. Slimy, slimy, oh it's such a good time. Oozing vomit has to be my favourite colour in the new effects range. It's just gross. Here I've used it on a vomiting river troll and added some mucousy green tints to the orange colour. And it dries with a glossy finish, so it will stand out a bit more. That's what you get for eating a gone-off dwarf. Number 12. Yoo-hoo! You can create some fun dribbles of goo and, well, general grossness by using 𝘱𝑢𝘆 It's fast drying, but as it does, you can use a paperclip to make a stringy look on your miniatures and terrain. And as a bonus, you can paint on it straight away to get that more disgusting look. And number 13, adding volume. You can mix the disgusting slime with some water effects to create a quick goo pool, or the start of a swampy terrain piece. It mixes in well and it keeps the colour really nicely. But you could start to get a bit creative and give it a two-tone look by adding in another paint. Here I added the old disgusting slime and mixed that in slowly to create a swishy look. Or even a radioactive, sludgy look for your sci-fi scenery. Number 14. Quick verdigris. Dilute down this textured verdigris paint. I mean, really thin it down, so it looks like it's separating on the palette. Then poke the brush onto the areas where you want it to flow into, and let the capillary action of the paint do all the work for you. You could then use a large, soft, bristled brush to pick up any excess, and Bob's your cousin's pet, you have a quick verdigris. Number 15. Easy weathered statues. If you have some old minis and you're not sure what to do with them, then make them into scenery. This warrior was painted with the verdigris first, all over, and then once dry was given an overbrush with a soft bristled makeup brush. First with a darker colour for the undertones, and then a lighter copper coloured paint for the main colour. As a side note, this verdigris paint does dry with a texture to it, so if you wanted it smoother, then just pick out a normal paint from the acrylic range, such as Amulet Aqua. Number 16, and most importantly, have fun. My main tip here would be to just play around with the paints and have some fun. Miniature painting is just a nice way to relax and be creative no matter what your skill level is. We are all in this glorious hobby together. So, which are your favourite effects paints and what will you use them on?